Hello, it's Senior Runner here, fresh from a bout of flu, so I'm a little bit croaky, but we will continue because I thought this was quite important. I've been speaking to one or two people who are ex-army. Now, as you can imagine, they have to be very athletic and able to run long distances with full pack. Now, this got me thinking, how did they do it? Because they must be really, really tuned up on how to do the best training within what they've got to the best they can. Optimum use of the area. Now we've got beaches, we've got long swathes of beaches, we've got different types of beaches even. We've got Portsdown Hill, we've got a huge hill, we've got lots of open countryside behind that and beyond that. So they can go literally for miles into fields and open land, or they can go along the beach and they can run for miles along the beach. They can go up really hefty hills. Portsdown Hill is not a small hill. It's very steep. So lots of physically tasking exercises. But what do they do? And this got me thinking of how I could put this towards you and also try and get the statistical and the analytical side correct. So I've tried to mould a 2-hour listen to this 2-hour vlog from an American university, and tried to listen in on what they do as cadets. And why they do it, and try to work out, okay, they do this, why do they do it? Can we take on something from that, and can we improve how we do our training, and how can we do that in order to get the best out of the obviously less rigorous training regime that we want to do. Now, to do this, we have to be able to understand a few things, and it is critical you listen to the end because it is a full video of all the little bits, including the technical info from the university over there in the US. So, a lot of the things that they do is they do beach running. Now, there's a lot of things to beach running. And when you're doing any training, the university said, look, it's not totally about getting those muscles tuned and trained up. There are certain exercises, for instance, that will help to improve the fibers with around the knee joints and around the bone structure. So for that, what I wanted to do is go back to something that the university stated was really, really critical, and it's looking at the fact that the forces on the body, especially on those lower legs, they go very, very high when you start to land because the amount of pressure that's going up the body shoots up. And then you have a certain amount of transference. So you transfer ready to push off. And as you transfer, the pressure going up the body goes down. And then as you start to push off, as you can imagine, it goes up a lot more steadily, but you push off a lot more steady. More pressure up the body as you push off. Now, so it goes up, down, and then way up into the air. Now, that shock, that body shock is going all the way up to body. Apparently, at the neck, at the top of the neck, there's 2% of that energy will still manage to make it to the base of the neck. So you can imagine there's a lot of energy that realistically would be best absorbed further down before it gets to the knees, before it gets to the hips, before it gets to the spine. It would be better if we could absorb more of it down at the bottom. Obviously, it tends to be gently absorbed all the way up 2% of the neck. So this is what we're trying to look at with this little video. It's about how do we improve that shock and stop it from going into the joints quite as much? Can we absorb it before it gets there? And how better to absorb it? Now, one of the things is, if you injure yourself, the actual muscle structure doesn't improve, but it fixes itself. And in fixing itself, it becomes a little bit more thicker, and it becomes a little bit, less likely to expand and give you energy. But apparently, according to university, it absorbs more energy. So it stops the energy from going to the upper elements of the body. So if it's in the calf, then you can imagine it's going to take away a very small percentage of pressure that's not then going to go to the knees, the hips, and the bottom of the neck, and so on. So I thought this was quite interesting. So actually getting injured, or no, more importantly, getting injured and then recovering actually improves that absorption of the energy. Very important point from the university there that I didn't really fully understand until I'd been through the full 2-hour report that they gave. So how do we do this? We can. Is it just the muscles fixing? No, it's tendons, it's muscles, it's bones themselves, and it's the cartilage within them. So keep having to nip away. So if I do stop, I'm just backing up my information, making sure it's correct. So you've got the bones, the cartilage, and the tendons, as well as the muscle structure itself. So everything has to be thought of, because everything will help to absorb this energy and stop you stop the energy from getting further up the body, and it reduces the likelihood of you being injured. So that's the other point. You see, they're saying, the university says, if you stop that energy from going quite so high up the body and you absorb it lower down, you have less likelihood of being injured. Now, obviously, getting injured and having your muscles regenerate certain, fixing areas means that you might not get as much from the muscle. So you don't really want to be going out there and getting injured on purpose. So how do we improve the bones? How do we improve the cartilage around it, and how do we improve those tendons to try and make sure that they're optimized to their best, so that they can actually pump out a little bit extra energy around them instead of shooting them straight up the leg? So that's going to be our first point. How do we do this? How do we go about trying to change those particular pieces, especially lower down around the legs and possibly just below the hips? So the university said a couple of things about how to try and train, how best to train to improve the different areas, and they showed us a fair few graphs about how to look at the front of the leg, the back, the side of the leg, the back of the leg, especially the calf area, and then going up to the thigh, perhaps a little bit of the lower end of that, and how we can try and make sure that certainly around the bones, around those areas, they're optimized to distribute the energy an awful lot better. Now, then taking it aside to how I was being told in the last couple of weeks about how the army did it. The first thing they said is, look, critical. The best thing you can run on is shingle. Just shingle. Now, you've got to imagine you're running along shingle, a nice shingle beach. Your foot can move either way, forward, backwards, sideways. Predominantly, it's pushing. You push backwards, the shingle goes backwards with it. Your foot is not solid. It's not got a firm base. So you're pushing constantly backwards. So your body is constantly trying to just maneuver itself to try and get as better grip as it can to move forward. So that's one type of product we can run on. Now, there are three basic types I want to look at here. The first type I want is sand. Sand, nice and smooth, soft. You see it perhaps with a night. It's just been rained on, or it's nice and dark. It's nice and firm. It's not the open sandy blow away stuff. It's nice and firm and hard. That's really good stuff to run on. It's nice and firm, just enough to stop the foot from sort of really making it extremely hard to run on. If it's nice and firm and wet or moist, you can run along that. Gentle movement of the sand away from your foot as you try pushing away, and it's usually quite stable, but it's stable in the direction you're pushing. Now this, apparently, down the front of the leg, you will get a certain amount. You can feel the bone down the front of your leg, down and you've got the calf muscles behind it. The front will then, apparently, according to the university, the cartilage around there and the tendons around there and some of the muscle structure around there will start to thicken up, because they're now starting to feel that they need to justify a lot more forward backward movement, and apparently it does affect the distribution of the forces from the front side of the calf. So the front side of the lower leg becomes a lot more stiffer, a lot more cartilage, and it tries to build up those shock absorbers around the front, because you're going on sand, you're moving the foot backwards a little bit when you're trying to move forwards. So that's quite critical to think about. Type 2 is the shingle. The shingle is interesting. Why is it that they run on shingle then, the army? Well, because this does two things. Because now we're starting to get a little bit more of a side-to-side movement. There could be rocks, there could be pebbles underneath that shingle, and you're slightly moving side to side, forward, backwards, and you're not knowing where that's going to slip. Are you going to slip sideways, forwards, backwards? You constantly think not quite running at your fullest, because if you do, you could break your ankle on if it suddenly flicks sideways. So you're constantly thinking about this and moving your feet as quickly as you can, without too much risk to your health. But the shingle is less likely to do that. So you can go pretty much flat out, but you're always looking for that one pebble of rock under the surface, aren't you? Like, oh, that got my foot, didn't it? So that doesn't always go sliding backwards. It occasionally slides side to side, or tilts a little bit forward, and you get a bit more push. Now that starts to improve the muscles, according to the university, not to me, around the front again, where the calf is behind, but it also goes around the side of that bone and starts to take in the cartilage around the side all the way up to the knee. Now it's starting to get around the front of the knee, down the side of the knee, and down the sides of the calf. We're starting to see thickening over a bigger area, and it's encompassing not just with sand at the front, but it's now encompassing the side of the leg as well. And we're starting to get higher up. We're starting to get to the lower thigh. Now, again, I will keep saying it, because people do tend to dislike me because they don't believe what I'm saying is true. Because of the university, because of what they said, we then look at the fact that people can run on these horrible boulders. Some of our beaches here are just pebbles. So we could run on pebbles. Very, very difficult indeed to run on pebbles. Why? Because you've put your foot on that top of that pebble, it will slip, and it's going to slip God knows where. So you're always running a little bit slower. You're always trying to watch where you're putting your foot. So you can run as fast as you can, but you're always going to be, oh, hang on, push my foot a little bit forward. There's a big rock there, and round the side of it. So you're always trying to make sure you don't get too much of an ankle shift. However, unfortunately, you do tend to get quite a bit. So by now you're probably getting the gist of what's going to happen. In a minute, we're going to start moving on to grass and how this can be transposed into people who haven't got a beach near them. So please do stay on board, like and subscribe. As you're running along the pebbles, you can guess where the improvement is. It's further back. Now we're starting to do some of the muscles that you don't run with, that are just supporting muscles and tendons in the actual calf itself. Around the back of the bone, the back of the knee, the right inside the back of the knee, up the back of the, probably along the back of the hamstring, and back into the calf. And now we're starting to see that we're trying to improve a lot more of the structure, other than just the muscles, around the calf and the thigh. You're also starting to generate enough shock to try and improve the compactness of the bones. So the bones now start to feel a little bit more. They need a little bit more compacting. We need more calcium in there. Let's go and beef them up a little bit. So we do tend to get, apparently, stronger bones, stronger tendons, and the cartilage is also getting thicker and stronger as well. Now, doing all three would be great, wouldn't it? You'd improve the front of the legs, you'd improve the side of the legs and a lot of the knee, around the side and front of the knee, and then with the boulders and more bigger pebbles, you'd start to improve the back of the knee, inside the calves, inside the thighs, and the back of the back of the knees and cartilage up there. They did say that in the university's 2-hour-long session that there are muscles in there that you don't actually use for running, that these sorts of training do actually improve quite well, and they're the sort of muscles that would certainly be able to take and absorb shock during a run, because they're not being used for that run. They can actually absorb very nicely if they're in the right state of mind, if you like, to absorb energy. They can do so. Improving their structure is brilliant, because whilst they're not going to be used in running, they sure as hell can be used to absorb the energy. So I found that quite interesting. So sand front, shingle sides, and a lot of the knee and lower thigh, and then the more boulder and rocks that we can run on. Quite difficult, foot moving an awful lot. Let's make sure that that's improving the back of the calf, inside the calf, the thigh, around the hamstring, around the back of the knee. It's improving all those leg bits that you're thinking, wow, and the muscle, the actual bone structure itself now starts coming into play with the more harder, foot twisting around in your body, sort of trying to make sure that it's acting as a balancing rod, isn't it? Trying to balance itself out, as well as trying to even those energies out. And while it's doing it, it's moving itself, and it's distributing the energies slightly different. And because of that, they said that's why the bones will start to just improve, and the tendons will improve, and the cartilage will improve. So it was really interesting. It's a really interesting 2-hour listen. If anybody is interested, I will try and find it again, and I'll give you the link. Just put it in the comments and I'll see if I can find it. However, brilliant video. I'm just giving you little bits of it. So, how on earth, if you're in the middle of a countryside and you've got no sea for like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours drive away, if you're in the middle of America, it's probably even more. What on earth do I do? Well, a nice moan field, yeah, grass, flat, bowling green type field, not going to make the foot move at all, is it? In fact, I would say that's not really going to do anything for you whatsoever. If you have it just a little bit moist, so that as you push along, you can feel that the not mud, but the ground just gives a little bit, just 1 or 2%, then we're starting to think the same as being in on a nice firm piece of sand that's not really moving very much at all. As you imagine, you get it wetter, you're starting to push back, and the less resistance that grass puts up, the more even it will be distributed backwards, as if you're on sand. So that's okay. Running on pretty soft grass is quite akin to running on sand. However, that's only going to do the front of your leg. Now, as we said, shingle is better than sand, according to the army, because it gives not only the front, it gives the sides as well. So you can do both here. One of the best training regimes of possible, isn't it? And it is. That's why the army do it. I'm not going to disagree with them. No way. So we go along with them. Shingle, how do we do this? Because this has got to be a little bit of a movement, a little bit of, it's got to have a bit of give back. It's got to have a bit of, so it can't be bowling green grass, because first of all, as your foot lands, technically it's got to be, am I landing on that side of the piece of that lump of grass, or that side, or it's got to be a little bit lumpy, a little bit bumpy. It's got to give that ankle a little bit of work to do as it hits the ground, and your body a little bit of work to do to just make sure it doesn't hurt itself as it's running along, and give you a bit of work to do to make sure you don't run too fast that you do hurt yourself. So a bit of thoughts involved, a bit of skills involved, and a bit of looking down at the ground as well, I must admit, and make sure you don't hit it. There's a big one over there, I don't want to put my foot on that one, but it's true. So a few bumps in the grass. The more bumpy it is, the bigger the shale, if you like, and the more likely you are to just start moving around. And as you can imagine, as you start getting to those the unmown field that's got 4 or 5 inch grass in it, and you can't even tell how many bumps are under there. There's probably a few stones under there as well, to be quite honest. It's a death trap, isn't it? Yeah, it is. And this is why you would not want to run it at full pelt, and you would want to be running this very gently at a nice easy pace, looking where your feet are landing. But also it's going to be like this, and it's going to be like you're running on boulders. So great, you can run it on grass, and that's the thought of it. You see, just look at it and akin it to being, if I was running on the beach, this field here in front of me, what would it be like? Well, my foot's going to move a little bit, or it's going to move a hell of a lot. There's lots of bumps in here, lots of unmown grass. Or I could run at the top where they cut it once every 3 weeks, and that's more akin to a sort of nice shingle type beach. Or I could run on the bowling green up there, and I'll get really shouted at. But it's like a road surface. So you can do all your running on grass, and just akin it to being, how would that grass area be if it was a sand or pebble or shale beach. And that's a really good way of doing it. So whether you're on at the beach, or whether you're in countryside somewhere, choose an area that is nice and shingly, or as a grass bit with a bit of a grass with a few little bumps in it, not quite, probably not been mown for a month or two, and it's got a fair few bumps in it, and that will improve the structure around the front of the legs, I improve the structure around the side of the legs. Would I want to improve the structure around the back? Well, yeah, I mean, if you can do, then do. Yeah, 1 or 2 runs a month, doing a nice easy run over something a little bit more like your pebbles, or your if you're on the beach, or a nice lumpy grassed area that's not been mown for a couple of months, will improve apparently the absorption of the energy going up the legs along the back. So, and all of this does what? As just to review this, guys, what does it improve? What am I telling you to improve? I'm telling you to improve this because it reduces the amount of energy getting up the body to those vital areas like your internal organs, your hips, certainly, your knees. Yeah. So if we can just reduce, 2 or 3% of the energy around the calves instead of it getting to the knees, can you imagine the amount of energy less that gets to those knees? Imagine the amount of energy then that's reduced going to the hips and the lower back. How many of you have back problems when you're a senior runner? How many of you have hip problems? And God knows how many have knee problems. Yeah, it's a reduced risk of all these problems. And it's really good to do it. And it's backed by university experiments and trials over in the US. And it's a known benefit because, hell, and I certainly know the British Army like to run on shingle because it's one of their best ways of getting that performance and long distance performance that they need to have within the Army Cadets. So hopefully you found that interesting. Please do like and subscribe. It's Senior Runner for one more really important video, backed again by one of the universities. I won't say which one it is. I did because they do tend to come up with different stories and different ones, but the one I was using, backs this totally and 100%. As do the Army. I know they do this the shale shingle type running quite a lot. And I'll leave it with you. Try and improve or reduce, should we say, your risk of injuries by this particular method of running. Thank you. Senior Runner, over and out. Like and subscribe.